Welcome, I'm Rogers Anderson, Williamson County's mayor, and as we travel around the county today, we're going to be visiting with Brian Corwin, who is up in our, we call it this semi-solid waste. Welcome to with the show on this today, Brian.
Thank you for letting me be here.
Brian's in charge of our sewage and septic area that we have here in the county, and it's called a lot of different names. So we thought that we would spend some time. We've done some PSAs.
Yep,
We're going to get those out on the street and kind of educate people about the usage and how they can preserve and get longer life out of the septic tanks. Right. And particularly during the holiday season, the winter time, you don't have as you don't feel like getting out, going to eat as much oftentimes, so you stay at home and you cook, and of course all that brings opportunities for it.
That's correct, it does.
Brian, before we actually get into excuse me, what all your department does, let's capture a little bit about Brian, who he is, where do you come from, and your face is very familiar. I know you've been around for many years here in the complex.
Yeah, originally born and raised in Alabama, but went to school in Knoxville at UT.
So which school do you show allegiance to, Alabama or Tennessee?
No, I grew up a Tennessee fan, so it was a rough childhood down there, believe me. But I always grew up bleeding orange, so that's really why I went to the UT, because I was a Tennessee fan. But after I graduated UT, I got 2 degrees up there. I got a bachelor's degree in engineering and a master's in engineering, and then I came to work here. I've been here almost going on 15 and a half years. So been here quite a bit for a while.
Well, you do a great job. It's a very tedious job of what you do. Lots and lots of paperwork. A lot of people don't understand all of the rules and regulations. And I guess the best place to start when we're dealing with homes, and that's 99.99% of your business, right. Residential homes. Mostly in the area of new construction. Certainly, we spend a lot of time in the existing homes on resales. Right. But let's kind of go back and bring forth the thing that we call contracted services here in this county. Across the state of Tennessee, it's handled, it's monitored in a different format. But kind of explain a little of that so people understand.
Right. And what we do is septic systems mainly here in Williamson County, and in our county about half of the citizens are served by a septic system. And like you mentioned, there's a state agency, the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, that oversees all septic systems throughout the state. But they have the ability to, like you said, enter into contracts with certain counties, and Williamson County is one of those. So we actually have a written contract with the state, and we implement all the septic system regulations that the state would, but we do it here in the county ourselves. So our county department handles all aspects. We regulate every aspect of septic systems. I kind of call it like a cradle-to-grave approach. So from whether it's, like you said, new construction, so people are building new septic systems, throughout the entire history or life of that septic system after people live there for years and years. So if there's any issues that come up, then we're the people that kind of deal with that in the county. And
a lot has changed, not only in your 15 years, but the way we approach land, having 1 tank versus 2 tanks.
Sure.
Kind of talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, the technology changes over time and over years, and some systems are still simple. We do quite a few simple systems that, like you said, 1 tank. We do quite a few systems that are a little more complex, that engineers have to be involved in, that engineers design. They may have different pumps and controls that are associated with them, and those can be on houses. A lot of people don't realize that. It's not just a simple type of thing that you put it in the ground and forget about it. Some of them are a little more complex than that nowadays.
One of the first things we would recommend that when people decide to start a new construction, there are many steps, but Brian and his department, they're located on the 4th floor at the Williamson County Administrative Complex, where you get your car tags. Most everyone notices that. As you walk up, it'll be to the left, catch the elevator, go to the 4th floor. That's also our area to pull permits. And to kind of talk us through that process on a new construction.
Yeah, in our department, sewage disposal is part of a bigger, broader department called community development. And so we all kind of work together for anyone that's, say, wanting to build a new house. So it's where you get any kind of zoning issues taken care of, your building permits, your septic permits, all those are kind of integrated together now. And years ago it wasn't, it was kind of broken apart, and so we've kind of tried to get that together. And so that's where you would start your process. And what we encourage people to come talk to us before you get too far down that path of maybe on a new construction of getting too far along before you come speak with us, because you don't want to get yourself in a bind or a problem that makes it more challenging to solve. And so come talk to us on the front end, and we can help you through that process, from getting a soil scientist involved to look at your property and kind of give you, we'll give you actually a checklist that kind of steps you through the process of getting your permit so that you can build your house.
We hear the term from people who are building their own house. They may get someone to actually do the construction for them or to oversee the project, but we hear the term oftentimes used, a perk test, a percolation test.
Right.
What is that?
Well, it's just one methodology that we use in this industry to kind of determine the quality of the soil. And that's what septic systems are. They are soil-based systems. They rely on the soil to treat wastewater. And so the regulations spell all that out, and it talks about that you have to have a certain quality of soil and a certain amount, a certain quantity of soil. And so when you hear that term perk test, or does the soil perk, that's more of a common kind of terminology. Is the soil good for septic system use? We still use perk tests, true perk tests, every now and again, but they've kind of fallen by the wayside. We have a lot of soil scientists now that are involved that actually do soil mapping. So they look at the soil in a different manner to actually come up with, the same kind of information to see, will it work for a septic system use?
Most of the people that move into Williamson County move into an area that's within the confines of our city limits. Franklin, Brentwood, Thompson Station, Nolensville, Spring Hill, and Fairview. I think I got them all, Brian. And as a normal rule, they do not have to deal with the things that we're talking about today. Right. Now, that's not to say there are not some existing homes within any of those city limits that we would just mention that may still be on a septic tank system. And in fact, there are still quite a few still on there where the cities have not run the trunk lines for someone to have access to a sewer system, and so those people would be on septic tanks. That may come as a shock to some of the viewers, but that still is a very it's not a large section of our business, but it is something you have to deal with.
Yeah, and really that's one of the big challenging things that we deal with. There's, like you said, we have a lot of people that move into the county that lived in urban settings, and so they've always lived on sewer. They don't know anything about septic systems, and so when they move to Williamson County, it's a very, very good chance that they're going to be on a septic system, and they don't even know about it. They don't know anything about a septic system. Some of them don't even know that when the house they bought is on a septic system. But like you said, there's within the city limits of some of those places, a lot of those are on sewer. But we do have little pockets of those in septic. But when you kind of get outside those little city limit areas, pretty much you're going to be on a septic system.
Brian, considering that a septic system is put in at today's standards, they meet the requirements, and with a typical homeowner, my home is in the county, what can I, or how long can I expect my system to be functional, provided I take some precautionary measures throughout a period of time? Right.
Well, like you said, I mean, when we design a system today on today's standards with today's regulations, we're doing it with the notion and the mindset that property will never have sewer available to it. So we want it to last as long as it can. So we're planning for 50, 60, 70, 80 years, that we want it to last. So that's how we size a system, have secondary areas and things of that nature. But just like you said, a lot of that is dependent on how a system is maintained. I tell people, I use the analogy, it's like owning a car and never changing the oil. Would you never do any maintenance to your car? And a septic system is the same way. Even the most simple, basic septic systems require some kind of maintenance throughout its life, just to make sure that it's going to function properly. There's a lot of do's and don'ts that to help a system function properly.
Let's get into a little bit of the maintenance. given the fact of you as a responsible homeowner, it is not a cheap investment that you make to begin with. Certainly, I think home ownership is one of those functions and things in life that all of us aspire to having someday. Now, it may be a sharing between the bank and the mortgage company and you for a long period of time, but all of us do dream of owning our own home. And when you think of one element of your house that you literally never really see, you certainly when you're washing fruits and vegetables and working around the kitchen area, when you're certainly in your bathrooms and your homes, all of the products that go down those pipes go into this thing we call the septic tank.
You're exactly right, and that's what's different. And it's changing people's mindset to understand just that. You know, you don't think about your septic system because it's underground, it's out of sight, it's out of mind, unless you have a problem, and then you start thinking about it. But really, you're operating your sewage treatment right there in your yard. So everything that goes down any drain is going into your septic system, and so it could impact it. And so that's the mindset and the education that we try to do, is get people to understand just that basic concept. Because on a sewer, you know, you don't really think about it. You flush it or you pour it down the drain, you don't think about it. It just goes away. Well, on a septic system, it doesn't go away. It stays on your property. And so it's changing that mindset.
Several times over the course of my years, I use an analogy, and for the bulk of my life, I've always been on septic tanks. So I grew up in that country, county environment of what you could put in a system and what you better avoid putting in. I actually grew up into an era in my younger days where all vegetables, all things you didn't eat, we didn't have a garbage disposal. It went into what we call a slop bucket, and you would take that out and feed the other livestock, or it'd wind itself back in your garden, and it would decay, and it certainly was good for your grounds. Well, today, I seriously doubt anybody would know what that term means. But I do use the illustration oftentimes. I'm not a gourmet cook by any means, but I can do spaghetti. And when you are taking the ground beef or ground turkey, certainly ground beef would produce more grease for you. And so there's a thought process, well, we'll just pour it down the drain and we'll be done with it. The other side of it is we grew up until you poured the grease off into a jar or a can, and oftentimes, of course today they don't do that, but they use that for flavoring, maybe to green beans or to something. Today the doctors and all the health experts, that's not healthy. So let's assume we're going to dispose of that, and as you know, the grease product in any of that, after it's had time to cool down and after it's had time to sit, it really becomes a very sticky residue. I don't know what the proper term is. So imagine that same product that's in that jar or in your trash can that's hardened itself up. It's doing that same thing through those pipes down to your septic tank.
That's exactly right. I mean, you described it perfectly. I mean, grease, fats, oils, and grease are one of the big problems with a septic system because it solidifies. It cools down and it solidifies, just like in that can you were talking about. And so it can clog up the tanks and the piping. If it gets out into the soil, it clogs up the soil. And so it's, you know, you did a very good job of describing a good do versus don't, especially with grease. You know, it's changing that mindset. You know, pour grease off instead of down the drain, wipe your pan off, throw that in the trash. And you mentioned things like cutting vegetables and produce and things of that nature. We live in a day and age where everyone has a garbage disposal, and everyone likes to use the garbage disposal. My wife loves her garbage disposal, and I do this for a living. Yeah. It is very convenient, but you have to be very careful about the use of that because you're grinding up all that material, and those are solids. And when you live on a septic system, all that goes into your tanks and into your system, and what it does is it requires that you have to do maintenance more often. So, so if you can, you know, minimize the amount of that goes down the drain, the better off that you are in the long term.
I think it is important that people understand that everything that goes into that garbage disposal, and we do not have a regulation that we might need one, but we've not gone there. That if you live off of a traditional sewer system, that if you go into a septic system, you do need to think about the solids, the
Right.
broccoli, the potato skins, and all of the products that you would automatically scraping off the plate going down into there. Because at some point, that product does have to get out of your septic tank,
Right.
into the field lines.
Right.
The reason I bring that up is, are there products out there on the market that can enhance the breakdown of some of these products? We hear, without mentioning names
Right.
on our show here, but there's a lot of advertisement about some products.
There's a lot, and anytime you go into Walmart or Lowe's or Home Depot or any of those kind of stores, you're going to see those on the shelf. And they make claims that they can break down all this material and help your system function properly. What I try to educate people and tell people about is your septic system, and especially your tank, is a biological process. And that biological process breaks down some of those materials to different forms. And these kind of products try to enhance that. In a properly working septic system, you shouldn't have to really add any of those kind of products. There's enough bacteria and stuff that occur naturally that the tank should function in a healthy manner. But what we do encourage people to do is pump your tank regularly. And when I say regularly, every 3 to 5 years. I mean, a lot of it's depending on, how much material goes down there, how much water you use, how many people live in a house, and things of that nature. But that's the best maintenance that recommendation that we can give people, just on a routine maintenance, is pumping your tank.
Are there natural products that one could put down their garbage disposal that might help this good bacteria you're talking about?
Yeah.
Are eggshells good, for an
Right,
example?
right.
Is there? You hear all of these. I hate to use the word wives' tales.
That's exactly right.
But there are a lot of rumors out there.
Right, you hear stuff about eggshells or coffee grounds or yeast. We hear a lot of old stories about putting yeast in your tank to get it started, and you really don't need to do any of that. Some of those really are more harmful. The eggshells really don't break down like that. Coffee grounds don't. They just settle out. And yeast, people think about yeast to start up. Well, just use your system normally, flushing your toilet and using your showers and your sinks. And there's enough natural occurring bacteria for your tank to operate the way it should.
You're cleaning your bathroom. You're using an old product called bleach. Again, not naming a name. Bad, good for the system.
Well, in moderation. That's what I try to tell everyone. Your normal household cleaners are fine in moderation, but don't overdo it. Read the labels. They're there for a reason. And so, if it says, 1 cup full or whatever to X amount of gallons, don't put 2 in there because you think it's going to be better. And so use it in moderation. But you don't want to overdo any kind of chemicals in your tank because of that biological process I was talking about. A lot of those disinfectants, that's what they do. They kill those bacteria, and so then your process doesn't work the way it should.
And my final question on the products inside of our tank, we've kind of covered the kitchen, we've covered the bathroom. Certainly the hair products that we have, hair is a protein. It's like a fingernail. And it takes an enormous amount of time to break that compound down.
Right.
And I would recommend, and I'm sure you would too, to put some kind of a strain or some kind of a screen filter to help catch that product.
That's exactly right. I mean, the older I get, the more hair is in the bottom of that drain when I take a shower. But that's exactly right. You can have little grate coverings over top of your drains. I mean, I've got one in my kitchen sink too. And so, but you're exactly right. Hair doesn't break down very readily, and so it gets in the system. It can clog it up. And we live in a day where just about everyone has pets, and so we see people wash their dogs. You maybe wash them in the shower or the bathtub. Well, you have to really think about that because I used to wash my dog in our big tub, and there was a tremendous amount of hair. So try to trap that and keep that from going all the way down the drain.
And it's not that we apologize for anything we're saying today. These are real facts, and that was the purpose of this show. And I know to some people that may think, well, the show may be a little bit more than I wanted to hear, but to people that live on a septic tank, believe me, they need to be, they will live with this product. They will live with the consequences of what they do or don't do.
That's right.
For the remainder life of that septic tank. Okay, we've got a house. I've got a house. I've decided to sell my house. I'm going to list it on the market. Someone comes in and says, we like your house, but how do we know that septic tank is still functional? How do we know that the mayor has taken care of his system, and the moment we buy it, it's going to fall apart?
Right. And that's a huge question. And not only do potential buyers want to know that, but the people that are lending you money to buy that house want to ensure that too. And so we get involved in that quite a bit, and that's one of the functions at our department, one of the services we offer, and it's called a recertification. And buyers or sellers can come in, and we will actually go visit the property, and we can kind of inspect the system or check the system out, make sure there's appears to be functioning the way it should, make sure hasn't been encroached upon, someone hasn't built something over top of it or caused damage to it or things of that nature. And it's just to give you a little bit of an assurance that it's working right. There are other private companies out there that offer those same kind of services, but that's something that the county does provide.
Assuming that, and in this county it happens quite often, that you've got a house in the country or within the confines of even inside the city, you might be on a septic tank. You want to expand your house. You want to add another room. Maybe you want to just, your family is growing, you need another bedroom.
Right.
What do we do?
Well, it starts, like I said before, when you come in to build a house. Come to us and talk to us about what you're wanting to do. Some people think, well, that shouldn't have anything to do with your septic system. And a lot of things that you might do to your property doesn't. But we want to make sure that you're not going to cause any harm to it. The size of systems you mentioned, add a bedroom. We size systems based on bedrooms. And so we want to just make sure that whatever you're doing to your property, help advise you that it's not going to adversely impact your property, because that's really what we want to do. We want you to have a good system working for as long as the property's there. And so we have processes. We meet with people every day about remodels or additions that they want to do, and we help advise them so that they don't impact their system adversely. And if there's things that they're going to do that we have to make adjustments to their system, whether we have to expand their system, then we can get them down that path also.
One of the conversations I know you have upstairs when people come to see you or to ask you, well, what difference does it really make? And if my tank is 1,000 gallons and I'm just using it, you know that they don't come in perfect 1,000 gallons. But here we got about 5 minutes left on our show, and they said, what difference does that really matter? And why is it your business to know about my septic tank? And why do you need my water usage, my water bill, or if you're buying a house? Why is that important?
And again, we're trying to help really the citizens. That's what we serve. That's who we serve. Is to make sure that that you're going to have a long-term functioning system, and the overall goal is protection of public health and the environment, because we want to make sure that we don't do anything that would adversely impact that. And so I know a lot of people sometimes think that some of the questions we ask or some of the information that we want is kind of intrusive, and it's not trying to be that. It's trying to help advise you and have a better understanding of your situation so that we can give you the best advice on how to approach that.
We've often had this conversation with you and others, and Joe, that most of the codes departments that we have in county government and cities, they have electrical inspectors, they have plumbing inspectors, and they're not there to catch and keep you from having your home or to expand your home. They're there for your safety. I dare say 50, 75 years ago that when an individual built a home, there were probably a whole bunch of electrical issues once the person built the home, and they may or may not cause a fire. They may or may not even function, because oftentimes in construction, you're hammering away on a nail and you may hit the electrical cords that go around in your house, and the same thing with plumbing. And
right.
so there's a lot of precautionaries in building a home so that you don't have damage. Mainly the contractor, he doesn't want to do it all over again.
That's right.
The other thing is to the septic system of an individual such as myself. We don't want you to have that incident. It always seems that incident occurs on New Year's, Christmas, Easter. It's the family gathering.
Right.
Everybody's around,
Right.
and the unit goes out.
That's right. And there's no one around.
And there's nobody around.
Yeah, that happens. And like you said, you know, in that bigger picture, you know, that's what we're trying to do is educate people. But if you have a situation where, you know, something happens on a weekend or the holidays, like you said, and our office is closed, so I've been telling everyone come talk to us and everything. There's some things that you can do to get immediate help and immediate relief. You know, our website has a list of different service providers that can come out there and get you some emergency relief until we get open and we can get out there to help assist you. So I encourage people to visit our website to get that kind of information.
Brian, we got about a couple of minutes left, and how about giving us a phone number they can call if to reach you, and then give us a website if you can recite it. I never can seem to do that. But the other thing is, in a couple of minutes that we've got remaining, maybe there's something that I'm not uncovered or asked that you would like to say or to talk about in here.
The big thing is just contact us. If you have any questions, if you have any concerns about your system, that's what we're there for. We field phone calls every day, and we try to be as accessible as we can. And so please call us. Our phone number is 790-5751, and the website is williamsoncounty-tennessee.gov.
www.williamson-10.org.
And I'm sure it'll be on the bottom of the screen.
It'll be on the bottom.
But that would be the big thing. Whatever you're going to do, if it's property improvements to your property, building a new home, doing an addition, or if you have just a general question about maintenance, or if you're experiencing problems, please just give us a call.
Well, I appreciate you sharing some of this expertise. You have got a wealth of knowledge. You're well recognized in the industry across the state, actually throughout the United States, in solid waste and in waste material, and it's not probably one of those jobs you can say at a Christmas party or that you do and people would understand, but you serve and you do an outstanding job here for Williamson County.
Thank you.
And the whole department oftentimes is under fire because it's one of those things that people get upset about oftentimes, sure. And I understand that, but sure. I think we do work through the issues, and so on behalf of all of us, we appreciate what you do.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much for the hard work you put in. If you got questions, call Brian. Go to the website. We appreciate everything that they do. I'm Roger Sanderson, Williamson County Mayor, and we will exit today and see you around at another time. Thank you very much.